Hello, you are about to watch a video covering top tips to support your children and young people in returning to school after being at home for some considerable time. My name is Lamorna Linfield Cole, and I am the Service Development Director at Psychology Associates, and my role involves overseeing, alongside our clinicians, our work with organisations such as charities, local authorities and schools. Here is a picture of us at the aquarium in Plymouth on our team day. Psychology Associates have been working closely with Saltash Community School for several years, providing consultation, assessment, direct counselling to students and staff, as well as providing training. We provide a wraparound psychological support service to the school. We have a multidisciplinary team of professionals who provide support in school. In this video, you will hear from several members of our multidisciplinary team, including educational psychologists, a speech and language therapist, and a trainee clinical psychologist. It will include several tips that will hopefully be helpful to you and your children, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, my name is Vicky Weir and I'm a trainee clinical psychologist working with Psychology Associates. We'll talk a little bit now about what children and young people might be thinking and feeling ahead of returning to school in September. For many children and young people, school ended suddenly in March with little or no time to prepare. Friendships are so important in childhood, and those sudden endings, as well as their not being able to go out and spend time with friends in the holidays, has probably been really tricky. Expectations of schools have changed. Going back to school with 30 people in a classroom being able to move around freely isn't going to be possible, but nobody quite knows what September's going to bring. Each person will have had different lockdown experiences. For some it will have been really positive, but for others it might have been a little bit tricky. And as we know, coronavirus has brought lots of uncertainty. The only thing we can be certain about is that coronavirus will continue to bring uncertainty. Coronavirus has also brought with it lots of loss and change. That normal school experience isn't going to be around anymore. Young people might have experienced changes in their own roles, so if family members have been sick, they might have become young carers themselves. Friendships might also have changed or been lost. Although video calling and social media makes it easier than ever to stay in touch, not all children will have had access to this, and some children might have felt quite isolated. Similarly with family, those normal routines are likely to have changed, and vulnerable family members or those who live further away might be really missed. On the other end of the spectrum, those in the same household will have all of a sudden experienced spending 24/7 together. The normal school day provides lots of structure and routine, which is really helpful, especially for young people. Some families might have had better means to replicate this school day, whereas others may not have had those opportunities. All losses and changes can lead to different feelings: frustration, anger, sadness, anxiety. This is all normal. We'll think a little bit more about worry and anxiety now. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but just some ideas about what might be worrisome. After having spent such a long time at home, returning to school in itself might be really daunting, especially for those leaving unwell family members behind, who they might want to be spending more time with and may not want to leave. There might also be worries about maintaining and sustaining friendships, reuniting with friends after having been so long apart, and worrying if those dynamics are going to have changed. Young people might also be worried for their own safety. The news is continuously saying that young people are at less risk, so that might make those feelings almost invalidated, even though it's completely okay to be feeling that way. For some young people, they might also be worried about their academic abilities. Lockdown is going to have been different for each person, and learning needs might not have been easy to meet. Comparisons to peers, concerns about the future impact of this on grades, university and beyond might be something really prominent in some people's minds. So what might be helpful? Being mindful and keeping an eye out for these experiences. Some children might be really open and honest about how they're thinking and feeling, but others might find it a little bit easier to hide or pretend that they're fine. Listening is so important, but without forcing a conversation. Giving young people space and time to come forward and share, and being there when they're ready, with an accepting and validating response. Making sure that young people feel accepted and validated makes those feelings a bit less scary, and it also gives space to talk things through and potentially find solutions. Don't guarantee that everything will be okay. Without sounding like the voice of doom and gloom, things are continuously changing and no one knows what's around the corner. The most important thing is making it feel okay when things are tough. Finally, everybody's going to have different responses, both young people and ourselves, and that's okay. They might change minute to minute or day to day, and that's fine. We're living through a global pandemic, and there are no right or wrong ways to be experiencing it. A final point is that staff at school know that children will be returning, bringing their own unique experiences with them. The staff are going to be prepared to support and help make that transition back to school as safe and comfortable as possible.
Hello, I'm Adam and I'm an educational psychologist. I'm going to take some time to talk about some of the things that can be useful to consider to help support your child back to returning to school. Firstly, we could consider having positive conversations about school. And we can start by talking with our child or young person about the return to school, gently and casually in conversation, focusing on some of the things that they might be looking forward to about coming back to school. So, for example, talking about their opportunity to connect with friends that they might not have seen, or preferred subjects they might be looking forward to getting started in again, or maybe key teachers who they have a good relationship with that they're missing. We can also support our children and young people by reintroducing structures and routines that are part of day-to-day life in school, but these may have been lost during school closure time. So this might involve setting morning routines again, setting the alarm, preparing and packing bags, and also considering schedules around how work is completed at home. For example, it might be quite helpful to discuss with your child and set times whereby they can complete home learning in a way that reflects the school timetable. Thirdly, we can consider sleep patterns. Our sleep patterns are influenced by our circadian rhythms, which are often compared to the concept of an internal body clock. During our teenage years, we actually need more sleep, and without the structure and routine of school, children and young people's internal body clocks, and so too their sleep patterns, are likely to have shifted. Making sudden and large changes to sleep patterns can be very stressful and difficult to manage. We'll know this if we've ever experienced jet lag. So it's important that we can help our children and young people to gently shift their sleep patterns back to those that would reflect what's needed for school. We can do this by gradually setting earlier and earlier alarms in the morning to wake up. It can be really helpful to make time to curiously and openly explore worries that your child might have about returning to school. They might be anxious about the changes to classrooms due to the social distancing measures. Perhaps they might be worried about pressures of returning to classroom learning, or maybe worries related to leaving loved ones with whom they've spent a considerable amount of time during school closure. Similarly, it can be useful to make time to talk about any safety worries or concerns about the virus that the child might have. Where you can, it's useful to create plans together to manage these concerns. So, for example, if your child is worried about leaving a family member to go to school, thinking about how they might be able to stay connected, perhaps planning extra connection time around the school day. It's important for us all to know our worries have been heard, validated, understood, and contained. We can use factual information to provide reassurance where possible, and we can also remind our children that you and the school will be able to help them step by step as and when things change. Finally, building a picture of what to expect. We are at our most resilient when we feel prepared and know what to expect, and this will be very important when it comes to returning to school. School will probably look, sound, and feel different, with precautions changing how lessons, breaks, lunch times, assemblies, sports, and day starts and ends operate. Following school updates closely and sharing information with your child will help to make them feel prepared for the return to school.
Hi, my name is Val Brooks. I'm a speech and language therapist. Children and young people with language and communication difficulties find school stressful even during ordinary, normal, non-COVID times and present with higher rates of anxiety than other pupils. So they're going to find it especially challenging going back into school. Increasing anxiety can express itself in many different ways, so notice anything different in your child's behaviours. This might be increased problems sleeping and concentrating, low mood, increased irritability. Anxiety can also express itself as anger or even as physical illness such as headaches, pains, nausea. So if you do notice changes in your child's behaviours and moods, do contact the school so staff there are aware and can provide you and your child with further advice and support. An important way of protecting your child from increasing anxieties about returning to school is to give them as much information as you can about the ways things are going to be different, and to do this using visual supports. Some schools are producing videos to show parents what the new school environment will be like. If yours does this, then that's something you might sit and watch together. If not, ask your school to send you photographs or pictures and go through these. If there are any new school rules, and I'm sure there will be, then ask the school to send you these in a communication-friendly format. So that would be with pictures, keywords. Go through these with your child regularly and have them around the house, such as stuck up on the fridge door, so your child is very familiar with them even before school starts. Make sure your child also has a good understanding of COVID and the vocabulary and words around COVID. As soon as young people get back into school, rumours will start circulating, stories and myths about the illness, which children with language communication difficulties can find very hard to sort into what's true and what is obviously untrue. What may very clearly be ridiculous or a joke to other pupils may be something that causes extra worry for your child. So make sure your child has the facts about COVID before going back into school. There are some very good websites that can help with this, and your school Senko or other members of school staff will, I'm sure, be able to advise you on these. The BBC has many good videos, especially made for children and young people, which you can watch with your child and pause to check understanding as you go along. You know your child best and will understand how to support this. Once pupils go back into school, there will be an understandable drive to try and make up for missed time and catch up with missed learning. However, children and people with language and communication difficulties have a much more fragile base for retaining learning than other pupils. So your child may need much longer to revise and re-establish previous learning before moving on to anything new. It's really, really important that new learning isn't introduced until previous learning has been explored and, if necessary, retaught. If you think your child is being moved on to new learning too quickly, then do talk to the school about this. And finally, it's important to remember that even children and young people who present as very articulate and with good vocabularies can find it very hard to put their feelings into words. Where at all possible, encourage your child to show you what they are thinking and feeling rather than just telling you. So perhaps draw out using stick figures the situation they're worrying about. Negotiate colours to represent emotions so your child can use these in their drawings. To avoid embarrassing or patronising your child, explain that this is to help you really understand what it's like for them, rather than it's because they have problems with communication. When you get the information from the school on the new rules and procedures, you could check through this with your child using a simple rating system. For example, draw a happy face to represent, I'm happy with this, it doesn't worry me at all. A neutral face to stand for, that's a bit worrying, but I can manage it. And a sad face, meaning this is really worrying me. So, for example, having to eat lunch in a different place, is that fine for your child? Or are they worrying that they won't know where to go or what is expected of them when they get there? And then the child places a tick under the corresponding face. I really hope the new term goes well, and thank you very much for listening.
In these uncertain times, it's more important than ever to think about how we prioritise finding time to relax. Returning to school will be exciting, but it might also heighten anxiety for young people. Helping them to look after their well-being is particularly important. One way of finding calm and relaxation is to practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of bringing attention to the present moment and being aware of current experiences without judgment. It's kind of a buzzword at the moment, but there's good reason, as it's been shown to reduce stress and increase ability to cope with tricky thoughts or feelings. There are so many apps or YouTube videos that can help guide to mindfulness, but it doesn't just need to be through meditating. It can also be incorporated into lots of everyday activities, for example mindful eating or mindful walking. Although we breathe all the time, breathing exercises are a great way to help the body calm down. It's almost like we've got our very own reset button. Breathing exercises help regulate the body's stress response and can make you feel calmer. Again, There are loads of apps and YouTube videos which can help guide breathing, and online there's lots of information about different breathing exercises such as the ones on this slide, which could be really helpful. Getting active might also be a great way of burning up that excess energy that comes from being anxious or nervous, as well as being great for your physical health and releasing positive neurotransmitters in your brain. This could be something like taking a 5-minute dance break to change the scene, or a big family walk along the beach. Burning off energy through exercise in the day can also help with sleeping later on. If it's possible to get outside for some fresh air, just being in nature itself can be incredibly relaxing and calming. In fact, there's a whole branch of therapy called ecotherapy, which promotes the benefits of being outdoors and the positive impact that this has on well-being. Finally, it's really important that self-care and finding time to relax is part of your routine as well. Promoting relaxation and time to calm yourself shows that it's something that's important and worthwhile to maintain well-being. Many of these activities are something that can be done independently, but also together as a family. And making regular time to relax and take care of well-being will not only promote its importance, but also make it more likely to become a normal part of routine, and therefore more likely to happen.
Emma Corrigan here, Lead Educational Psychologist at Psychology Associates. I'm going to spend a few minutes focusing on those first few weeks when your child is returning to school. It's important we consider how, for each of us, children, young people, adults, we may find this brings a range of emotions and feelings, a real mixed bag of excitement, nerves, worry, anxiety, for many a sense of loss, and also a sense that they just want to be back to normal. But of course things will feel different, they will be different, and we may experience these feelings to different degrees, and just reassuring your child that whatever they feel is okay. So making the time to talk, be curious about how it's been, what they're feeling, what's been the same, different, challenging, what could help. So just that checking in and letting them know that it might still feel tricky, it might continue to feel different and unsettled, and you're there to help make sense of things together. So preparing for increased tiredness. So going back, different routines, this will be tiring, and it will be important to plan opportunities to have some fun, some chill, some calming down time, but also to keep making space for some fun and enjoyment, because we know this is protective. It's important for all of us. If we're having some fun, we can't be in a state of stress or anxiety, so it's crucial for our emotional well-being. Also, there's likely to be some adjustment with sleep patterns and energy levels, so really important to be able to recharge a bit, and expect that tiredness will impact on mood. It will impact on how engaged and ready to learn we are, so just some acceptance that it might feel tough and it might take a little bit of time. And finally, helping your child to manage what might be worry or pressure of work demands and increased pressure to catch up on missed learning. So it's helpful that we provide structure, routine and planning around that, creating a team with school, but incredibly important to give a strong message that looking after yourself and your well-being, this comes first. We can only learn effectively when our emotions, our mental health and well-being is supported. This is something we all need to prioritise, whatever our age. So modelling that with your children, how to take care of yourself, how to maintain a sense of calm so that demand doesn't feel overwhelming. That's one of the most supportive things that you can continue to do for them.
Thank you for watching, and we hope that you found the ideas and suggestions useful. You can find more information and useful resources on our website at www.psychologyassociates.org.uk. And you can also speak to staff at school to support your child's return.